How can I succeed in and accomplish creating my own children's picture book? First, let's understand what we're working with. Books. What are books? According to Oxford Languages 2021, a book is a written or printed work consisting of pages glued or sewn together along one side and bound in covers. This definition is the physical component to what a book is, but the real determiner of a book is what it possesses inside, what it's about. A meaningful storyline that conveys a good message. How is that achieved? Beloved characters. How are they created? From an idea to a reality. What's the process? We're going to find out. Let's start off with how online resources and real children's picture books help me find ideas. Throughout my research project, I found multiple online and real children's picture book resources that provided me with a lot of ideas. I used the critical and creative capability to think and act critically when noting ideas and selecting children's picture books that really radiated ideas and inspiration towards me. Here are some key findings I found from my first source analysis on the children's picture book, The 11th Hour. Let's talk about how online resources and real children's picture books help me gain knowledge. A lot of the base knowledge I found for creating a children's picture book was drawn from my third source analysis, an online source called BookFox, explaining how to make a children's picture book in 12 steps. This source was written by a book editor called John Matthew Fox, and the article went into depth and provided me with these points of knowledge. I also gained some great knowledge on illustrating from my online resource of an Instagram interview with an artist known as Pop D. I performed my fifth source analysis on this interview, and they shared some great illustration knowledge, such as equipment recommendations and tips for illustrating backgrounds by doing reference studies, practicing creating different moods to backgrounds, and using color theory and lighting. After performing my first source analysis on the 11th hour, I found that I really liked the Friends theme and fictional animal character theme, as I could relate and envision ideas around that theme. I was also really inspired by the detailed style and expressive characters. I found another book called Blossom Possum written by Gina Newton and illustrated by Kilmany Nyland. This book shared the same theme of friends and fictional animal characters, however had a more adventurous storyline which really inspired me and made me inspired to base my book on adventure. Within this chapter, I used the critical aspect of the critical and creative capability to filter information, knowledge, ideas, and information I found from my research. Before I begin chapter 2, I have made a few decisions relative to the making of my book. My book will be based under the genre of fiction. I will be basing my book on animal characters, and I will be incorporating the Friends adventure theme into my book. A house doesn't just appear, it's formed, built on, through a number of elements, bricks, pipes, and tiles. This same principle applies when creating a story. There are multiple key elements when creating a storyline, but I don't have the time to talk about all of them, so here are some main ones I found from online articles. Starting off with theme. My theme will be based on friends, adventure, and memories, revolving around fictional concepts. I chose this theme as I can relate real-life concepts to it, like me and my real friend group's hangouts and memories. Here are some key findings relevant to the development of my characters. I will be applying this information. Good children's books, no matter how simple or complex, offer a sense of joy. They can make us laugh or cry by giving us a character we want to care about. Hence my personal implementation of fictional animal characters based on real people, being my friend group and myself. Each of these characters are based on one of my friends. They know who they are. And by doing so, I have achieved the creation of this quote. The best books have unique characters. They are quirky in some way. They have a funny habit, they look strange, or they talk differently than everyone else. I asked my friends what their favourite animal was because that would be their character. They were all different animals. My friends themselves have all unique personalities, and seeing as I know them well, it's easy to write about and character development is already complete. Lastly, the message/lesson. This element is probably the most important part of any book. Over the years, I've come to recognise the importance of being there for people, and my friends have consistently carried that attribute. They are always there for me and our whole group, and my book emphasises the value of that. My book will also go into the message of how important treasuring moments are. To smile that it happened, and to not be sad that it's over, and that no matter the circumstance, these friends stick together, and will never forget each other. Throughout this chapter, I use the creative aspect of the critical and creative capability to build the foundation of my storyline, by selecting a theme, creating characters, and creating a message to be conveyed. After analysing a variety of little children's picture books, I found that a lot of them contained writing conventions such as rhyming and repetition. The purpose of this is to make the book more engaging. One example of a book like this is Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham. This book consists of an arrangement of words telling a story in an imaginative way. Rhyming is also interlocked with this, and clear repetition. These techniques making the book quite a success. Not all children's picture books include these techniques. Some use big words or educational strategies such as counting or going through the alphabet. I decided for my book that I'd use a combination of mild rhyming and repetition. I also tried to introduce imaginative writing, so kids can really envision the writing into pictures in their mind, but the pictures in the book do that anyway. Throughout this chapter, I used the critical and creative capability to think critically when selecting the right phrases and words to fit with the included language devices. I also thought creatively when using imaginative writing to make my writing feel more alive and engaging. Here are some key findings relevant to this chapter. Some great illustration advice was offered from my second source analysis on a Disney Pixar animation studio documentary. They said every artist has a unique style, and this is quite true. Children's books, authors and illustrators implement a hint of themselves into their work and present their style. I took this on board and illustrated in such a way that it reflected my style. Here was my take. First, before anything, I looked back on my key findings. Both Disney and Artist Pop D said to explore a range of concepts, ideas, sketches, trials, and all sorts. Have fun with it and experiment. They also said to do many reference photo studies, use Pinterest and references, and inspiration. I sketched out the main characters and the storyboard. I took Disney's advice and broke down designs into simple shapes. Next stage was turning this into this. First, lining. Then filling, colouring, shading, and finally lighting. Throughout this chapter, I used the critical and creative capability to critique my artwork, and if I wasn't happy with an illustration, I'd redesign and filter ideas until I was happy with it. I also used a critical perspective when illustrating expressions to make them convey emotion to a satisfactory degree. I used creativity to create concepts, create life throughout the illustrated scenes, and bring creative concepts to life. A lot of backgrounds required creative influence throughout placement, what it was, and where it was set. This step was quite simple. The free graphic art software Ibis Paint I was using includes a feature in which it had hundreds of fonts displayed that you can type and paste your own text into. This feature allowed me to do all my font formatting and editing on that same software, which provided a point for convenience and a point for time saving. Throughout this chapter, I used the critical and creative capability to critique word placement and style. Copy editing and developmental editing was done throughout the making and via the Ibis Paint software. As for publishing options, I'll be chucking an email to a small company to attempt the publication of my book. However, this option could fall through, and if so, I'll resort to self-publication options. Manufacturing, I plan on getting my book printed. However, at this stage, I printed it out at home and clapped it all together. Throughout this chapter, I used the critical and creative capability to create fallback plans for publishing and critique work through the editing process. Now I know throughout this video it was very la-di-da, happy-wappy, but
it was very hard work.
Hope you enjoyed.